Alrighty guys, so it is officially the end of 2020 and we've seen every single match in wrestling for the most part, WWE-wise, AEW-wise. There's going to be no more pay-per-views or anything like that. I'm sure there's going to be no outstanding matches that should have been on this list to come this year. So I'm going to announce my top 10 favorite matches that I personally enjoyed this year. Coming in at number 10, we have AJ Styles versus Jeff Hardy versus Sami Zayn in a ladder match for the Intercontinental title at Clash of Champions. This is one of those matches that's going to fly over your head. Like, you really enjoyed it then, but like when it comes time to think about the matches, it's probably going to be one that's going to fly over your head. But I think this is one of the most underrated matches. Not a lot of people talk about it, surprisingly. I really enjoyed it. Maybe it's due to the outcome of Sami Zayn winning or something like that. I personally thought it should have been Jeff Hardy, but, you know, Sami Zayn's had a great run as Intercontinental Champion, and I don't regret, you know, Sami Zayn winning the championship or anything like that. But I think this match was filled with fun spots that are very memorable. For instance, Sami Zayn or was it AJ? I can't remember. But it was either Sami or AJ that hooked up a small ladder and handcuffs to AJ's ear because he has those big earrings and the big holes in his ears. And he like twisted it or something like that, and then was pulling him with the ladder. It was absolutely insane. So many great spots. I love seeing heel on heel, so like heel Sami Zayn versus heel AJ. And I just think that there were so many great moments in this match. Swanton bombs, just great phenomenal moves. Sami Zayn eventually coming out on top with both Intercontinental titles, being called the Undisputed Intercontinental Champion. But that is number 10 on my list. Let's get to number 9. Coming in at number 9 on my list, we have Keith Lee versus Dominik Dijakovic, I believe at NXT TakeOver Portland. I believe that's when it was. I know they've had numerous matches for the NXT North American Championship. But yeah, it was for the NXT North American Championship. And I think this title is one of those matches where it really represents what NXT is about and the different wrestling style that NXT brings to the table for WWE, and it brings the prestige to the championship, the North American Championship. I just think this match was great. Two big dudes. We have a big bulky dude like Keith Lee facing off against a really tall dude, Dominik Dijakovic. Both just super fierce. A lot of force coming from both guys. There was one spot in particular that was great to me. It was Keith Lee getting ready to be chokeslammed by Dominik Dijakovic, and Keith Lee attempts a backflip, almost landing it. I thought that was insane. There was also something, I think Keith Lee was on the outside on a announcer's chair, and Dominik Dijakovic, I believe, dove and like drop kicked him through the chair. It was insane. I just remember this match being like mind-blowing to me because I didn't expect a whole lot out of it, but when I usually don't expect a lot out of a match, that's when I typically like the match a lot, and that's what happened with this match. I think Keith Lee and Dominik Dijakovic have a great feud, and I think it's something that could be incorporated into the main roster. I know that Dominik Dijakovic is in Retribution, I believe, right now, so maybe one day when he gets out of that role, maybe we can reignite Keith Lee and Dominik Dijakovic's feud, maybe for the WWE title, who knows, but that's number 9 on my list. Alrighty guys, coming in at number 8 on my list. 8 is my lucky number, so I think this match definitely fits the role. We have Jon Moxley versus Chris Jericho at AEW's Revolution for the AEW World title. This was a turning point for AEW. We have a great champion, the first world champion for AEW. We have Chris Jericho, which I totally agree with him being the first world champion, versus a guy that is building himself back up out of WWE, proving that he doesn't need to be in WWE to be a great wrestler. And this happens when he defeats Chris Jericho to become the second ever AEW World Champion, cementing his name in history as the second ever AEW World Champion. Now, this match, to be honest, wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be, but it still delivered. It was still great. Massive storytelling between the Inner Circle and Jon Moxley with the eye patch, him taking it off. We even got stuff that was not planned in the match, like Jon Moxley getting put through the table and the ring bell, the wood part, coming in and slicing his freaking, I think it was his head open. I don't think it was his eye, I think it was his head. And that huge just gushing blood. And I just think the match was great. It had a great finish with the paradigm shift. And I think that that promo after the match it cemented Jon Moxley's role as the guy, in my opinion, in AEW. When I look at Jon Moxley, I think his time as world champion really made him the guy in AEW, the extreme guy, the face of AEW. Almost like the John Cena 10 years ago of WWE. That's how I picture Jon Moxley in AEW. And I think he grew on a lot of people. People that maybe didn't like Jon Moxley before liked him because of his AEW World Title reign. He's had so many great matches with Eddie Kingston, Brody Lee, Kenny Omega. So many great matches for this championship. Which, by the way, rest in peace, Brody Lee. One of my favorite AEW wrestlers. Thoughts and prayers go out to your family. Once again, this is number 8 on my list. I absolutely love this match. Leave it in the comments down below what number you would place this match in. Coming in at number 7, we have a match I don't think a lot of people are going to put on the list. I think this is one that is overlooked once again. But this is one of my personal favorite matches of the year. We have Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre and their big pay-per-view blow-off feud match in a Hell in the Cell. This is one I really wanted to happen in a Hell in the Cell. They had the ambulance match, the regular match at SummerSlam, and then the Hell in the Cell one was definitely needed. It was mandatory for their feud to have it in the Hell in a Cell, the big blow-off. I know they had their match on Raw later, and Drew McIntyre beat him for the title, but I consider this to be their blow-off to their feud because it was like the big final ending in a Hell in a Cell. There were so many great moments in this match. We got a couple RKOs, we got a couple Claymore kicks, we got a huge fight on the top of the Hell in a Cell. We got Drew McIntyre falling off the side of the Hell in a Cell through a table, getting absolutely decimated by Orton. And this definitely proved, I think this was necessary for Drew McIntyre to lose this match, just because, you know, he was on such a dominant reign, and it was necessary for Drew to have a weak point. You know what I mean? Like, he can't just be this dominant dude who has no weak points and then suddenly loses the title. Him building up this feud with Randy Orton, it was inevitable that Randy Orton was going to pin him at some point, and it did in this match. He found the right moment. Drew went for the Claymore kick. Randy ducked. I've been waiting for that reversal for a long time, by the way. And then straight into an RKO. 1, 2, 3. Randy Orton is champ. Great moment. One of the best moments of the year, in my opinion, seeing Randy Orton get to hold that title again. Only for a couple weeks, but it is what it is. But yeah, this match is number 7 on my list. Let's get to number 6. And coming in at number 6, we have a big one. This one took place on NXT. We have a fatal 4-way Iron Man match, and I do believe this is the first time WWE or NXT has ever done this type of match. The 4 members were Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole, and Finn Balor. The reason this match occurred was because Karrion Kross had just beat Keith Lee for the title. I think he separated his shoulder, relinquished the championship, and then NXT needed the 4 best opponents or contenders to compete for the #1 contender spot, or actually not the #1 contender spot, just the NXT championship. This match was for the NXT championship, and I think it was great seeing these 4 former NXT champions just go at it to prove who was the best NXT champion. Tommaso Ciampa being great. I think Ciampa and Gargano scored, I think they each scored 1 fall. And then Adam Cole and Balor each scored 2. And then at the very end of the match, Balor was about to win, and then he got the final shot, I believe it was, by Adam Cole for the 1, 2, 3, which tied Adam Cole and Finn Balor in first place, and it eventually led to their blow-off match for the NXT title, where Finn Balor would become NXT champion. But I think this match was so unique, and I'm glad it ended the way it did, just because it pushed it to a further match, which was also phenomenal. Not as good, in my opinion, as this one. I just think this is a very unique match, and that's why I put it on this list. First ever Fatal 4-Way Iron Man match for the NXT title. Absolutely great. Adam Cole and Finn Balor tying in first place. But yeah, great match. This was number 6 on my list. Let's get to number 5. Coming in at number 5, we have the 2020 Men's Royal Rumble match. This match was phenomenal. I think this is going to be on a lot of people's match lists. This match was full of surprises, full of great spots, moments. Starting off at number 1, we had Brock Lesnar, the WWE Champion, and he was going to prove that he would run through everybody in the Royal Rumble. Nobody was worth his time or worth fighting at WrestleMania, so he was going to prove that he didn't need to fight at WrestleMania. So Brock Lesnar coming in at number 1, and he just ran through everybody until Drew McIntyre. And that's when we got the whole Claymore over the top rope. We also got Ricochet starting his feud with Brock with the whole low blow. But that was great. I think a lot of people wanted that to happen. I don't think they necessarily expected WWE to pull the trigger on it, which they did, and the whole crowd, I remember it, the whole crowd erupting like, holy cow, it doesn't even matter if Drew wins the Royal Rumble at this point. He just Claymored the Beast. It's inevitable they're going to fight at WrestleMania. And then the match went on. We had great spots with AJ Styles, NXT guys. We also got the return of the Rated R Superstar, which I think, once again, I think a lot of people wanted it to happen and weren't 100% sure if it was going to. But once again, WWE pulled the trigger and we got the Rated R Superstar coming out again, spearing AJ Styles with that whole backflip thing. I think he like separated his shoulder on that. We got so many great moments. I think the final 4 participants were Drew McIntyre, Roman Reigns, Edge, and Randy Orton. And these 4 participants, Drew McIntyre, Edge, Randy Orton, and Roman Reigns, were probably the 4 most dominant people in the match besides Brock Lesnar. We got to see Randy Orton and Edge meet again in the ring again. I think Edge eliminated Randy Orton, which sparked their feud once again until WrestleMania and Backlash, I do believe. And then we got to see a Claymore from Drew McIntyre. It came down to Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns. Everybody was like, oh, Roman Reigns is going to win, whatever. He's going to face Goldberg at WrestleMania for the title, or The Fiend, whatever it was. And then, nope, WWE pulled the trigger. Claymore throwing Roman Reigns over the top rope. Drew McIntyre surprises the world and is the 2020 Men's Royal Rumble winner, which set the year in place for him, 2-time WWE champion, and so many great wins in 2020. So that's number 5. Let's go to number 4. Coming in at number 4, we just talked about this match, Edge versus Randy Orton at Backlash. Greatest match ever, I believe, was the name they were putting on it. And while it wasn't the best match ever, it was very entertaining and the 4th best match of the year, in my opinion. We got Edge and Randy Orton in their prime, or I wouldn't say in their prime, but like current stage in life in their prime. Edge in phenomenal shape and Randy Orton in phenomenal shape. Both dudes going at it. Super great match. What I loved about this match so much is that Randy Orton and Edge threw so many different moves into this match, and I think that's why they called it the greatest match ever, is because they knew there was going to be so many different finishers, so many things done that we've never seen these guys do before. We saw Randy Orton hit the pedigree, we saw Edge hit the rock bottom, we saw so many great apron spots on the side of the ring. We saw so many great kickouts. I think Randy Orton kicked out of 3 spears. Edge kicked out of like 2 RKOs. It was overall great. We saw the finish, which was Randy Orton returning with the punt. Everybody was so in shock that that punt returned. And I think it wasn't the greatest match ever, but it was one of the best ones of the year. And this is one that it will definitely go down in history. And not to mention, you know, there was a lot of people complaining during this time, like, this match is going to suck, blah, 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 blah. But think about it. Who would have thought that in 2020 we would see Edge return and face Randy Orton once again in one of the greatest matches of the year? I certainly didn't, but I am surprised and I'm satisfied. Let's move on to number 3. Moving on to number 3, we have a cinematic match. I believe this was the this was the first cinematic match, I do believe, of the year. It is Undertaker versus AJ Styles. In my opinion, this is the best cinematic match we've gotten other than the Randy Orton Fiend match. I did not put that on my list just because, you know, that was so later in the year. I already conducted this list before that match even happened. But we have Undertaker versus AJ Styles. Great storytelling. We didn't get a typical match in the ring. This is the first time Undertaker's had a very unique match at WrestleMania. This took place like in the Boneyard. I think it was called the Boneyard match. Undertaker returning with that American badass or badass-esque type gimmick, along with the dead man thrown in there a little bit. So it was like kind of both characters thrown in the mix together. And this was a buried alive match pretty much. They just pretty much fought around the whole property of the land they're on. And there was that great spot where Undertaker fought off the OC. We got the choke slam off the top of the building of AJ going through all the rubble and stuff like that. We saw Undertaker almost get buried and then rise behind AJ Styles and grab him. And eventually, I think he booted him into the grave. And this match was great with storytelling. I think it's one of the most unique Undertaker matches we've ever gotten. One of my favorites, to be honest. I think it was great coming in on a motorcycle. It was almost like a movie, and that's what I loved so much about this match. AJ still wearing his gloves and his elbow pad, but just with jeans. I think that was super cool. One of the best matches at WrestleMania, if not the best. But that's why it's at number 3. Let's move on to number 2. Coming in at number 2, we have an AEW match, and I think this is probably going to be at number 1 in a lot of people's lists, but for me, this is number 2. We have the Young Bucks versus Kenny Omega and Hangman Page for the AEW World Tag Team Championships at AEW's Revolution. AEW Revolution was a fantastic pay-per-view. That's why we have 2 of their matches on this list. But we have 2 of the best teams in the world, I guess you could say. The Young Bucks probably being the best tag team in the world. And then we have an unlikely team, in my opinion, Kenny Omega and Hangman Page, the tag team champions, going up against Young Bucks. I think a lot of people thought that Young Bucks were going to win this and turn heel, just because they're more of a tag team than Kenny Omega and Hangman were. But I think Kenny Omega and Hangman proved themselves as a tag team in this match, defeating the Young Bucks. I remember watching this match and being on the edge of my seat the entire time. All these kickouts and all these different moves that I thought these guys broke their necks on. This match is filled with so much great wrestling content. This is a match I could watch over and over and over again, 5 times in a row. I definitely recommend checking out this match. It's a must-watch, especially if you're new to AEW. This match will get you hooked to AEW, just like it did for me. And again, Kenny Omega and Hangman Page did retain their titles, proving themselves, cementing themselves as 2 of the greatest tag team competitors in AEW history so far, defeating the Young Bucks. But that's why it's number 2. Let's get to number 1. And coming in at number 1, we have WWE's 2020 Survivor Series Champion vs. Champion match. Drew McIntyre, the WWE Champion, versus the Universal Champion, Roman Reigns. And I gotta say, this match blew my expectations out of the water. I thought this match was just going to be a simple match, but no, they added so much great storytelling to this match, and the build-up to this match was great. We only, in a short amount of time, I think it was like a week, we got the build-up towards it, and we had Drew McIntyre win the title back from Randy Orton. We get fitting that theme that we got the past 2 or 3 years. Daniel Bryan winning the title, and then AJ Styles winning the title to face Brock Lesnar. But this time we got Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre. And I think this is perfect because this definitely proves that Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns are the top guys, the 2 most dominant males in WWE in 2020. Drew McIntyre having such a great WWE Championship reign, and now he's on his 2nd reign, which is probably going to be just as good, if not better. And then we have Roman Reigns, who returned as the ultimate badass and the head of the table, and is just unbeatable, and has so much great storytelling. People love both dudes, and I actually think at some point people were rooting for Roman Reigns more than Drew McIntyre. Even though Drew McIntyre, I feel like, was more loved this year and more, like, people wanted him to have a higher spot. It's just so surprising that Roman Reigns is as loved as he is right now. It's so great, finally. But this match was great. I think it made both guys look so dominant, kicking out of each other's finishers. It was pretty 50-50, I gotta say. And we got 2 spears. The first one was a spear through a barricade, thrown back in the ring. 1, 2, McIntyre kicks out. If you go back and watch my live stream, when he kicks out, I like literally jump out of my seat. It's insane. And then we got another spear. McIntyre kicks out again. And I was just so surprised. I'm like, oh my gosh, McIntyre's going to win. This is insane. And then we got a Claymore, and being the heel he was, or is, Roman Reigns knocking down the ref. And then we got Jey Uso coming in, super kicking Drew McIntyre. And then we got the guillotine submission. Drew McIntyre passing out. So thank God he wasn't pinned. I just think it made both guys look so good. Both dominant champions. And now at Survivor Series, it's the Universal Champion is undefeated against the WWE Champion. The WWE Champion has never defeated the Universal Champion. Make that known. I don't know what that means, if this is a more prestigious title now or what. I think both titles are great, and I think Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre are great at their roles. I think this match was great, and if you haven't seen this match, I definitely recommend going and checking out again. Even if you have seen it, make sure you go check it out just to see the parts I'm talking about. It's just a great match. I know maybe Young Bucks versus Hangman and Kenny was probably overall a better match. I just liked the image of Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre. It was just something I've been waiting to happen this year, and it did, and it blew all their other matches out of the water. That is why it's at number 1. Alrighty guys, that is it for this video. Make sure to leave it in the comments down below which match on my list is your favorite, and if you want to rearrange them in order of how you liked them, make sure to do that. Also, leave your personal favorite top 10 matches in the comments down below. These were my personal top 10. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching guys. WWE Fan Talk Show, out.